I remember the very first time I met Antonia Liu. She was a little bit skeptical about taking this class. In fact, it was a required class for her because she was an entrepreneurial fellow. And so for her, this class was required, but writing a book wasn't something she was particularly keen on. For her, she was just sort of trying to figure out how she could get through the required classes and graduate. Her goal is to become an entrepreneur. She thinks of college as really a means to an end, and in some ways a little bit of a risk mitigator to say, okay, I'm probably going to have to work somewhere to do this. So the key thing to think about is, how do you wind up using a book as a tool to accelerate your career as an entrepreneur, or in whatever way you may think about it, to have an entrepreneurial career? And that's what I love about the story of Antonia Liu.
So Tim Ferriss has been my personal hero, and his book, Two of Titans, is the main inspiration for my book. And 2 weeks ago, I met him in DC at the book tour event, gave him a copy of my book. I was so excited to give a copy of my book to one of my heroes. And now I'm at Tony Robbins' Date with Destiny event. I ran into Tim again, and we talked, and he said, I thought you did a good job on your book, and I was so excited. Coming from a hero of mine telling me that, I'm so excited.
Now this is a way to think about how your book can help you accelerate to where you actually want to go. For Antonia, she wants to be working closely with founders of companies, she wants to be working closely with startups, and eventually she wants to found her own thing. That's why the topic she picked was absolutely critical. Antonia told us who she wanted to be. She wants to be an entrepreneur. One day. She wasn't in a hurry to do it now. She didn't have an idea. She wasn't something she was jonesing to sort of just start something. And in fact, that's good. Many people feel pressure. They have to start something today. And that's part of the problem. You don't want to start something unless you're truly passionate about it. Great founders love their idea. They love the problem. I've been told this all the time. I want to bet on entrepreneurs and founders who love the problem, not the solution. So if you don't know exactly what you want to do, you need to figure out next of who you want to meet to find it. And that was the secret of Antonia Liu's book. Antonia wrote the book, Hack College Like an Entrepreneur. Now, seems kind of a funny thing, but what she was writing about was this sort of perception that if you're entrepreneurial, the best thing you need to do is drop out of college and pursue it. And there's lots of studies we talk about. We talk about Steve Jobs, Mark Zuckerberg, Evan Spiegel from Snapchat, Michael Dell, people who dropped out of college and became big, gigantic successes. The reality is that's very, very rare. In fact, not many people do that. 98% of successful startup founders worked for someone for some time before they wound up going on to start their venture. Now again, it happens, and if you have something that you're super passionate about, go for it. Not my problem to stop you at all. But for most of us, we're not like that. Most of us will do different things, and in fact, the average successful startup founder doesn't start their business until they're about 40. So the reality of this is you'll need to figure out ways to accelerate yourself there. So instead of thinking about how I got to find something to drop out and do it now, maybe think about cutting that in half. So rather than trying to sort of start my first business when I'm 40, maybe when you're 27 or 26 or 28, somewhere in that range. And part of the secret of this process that Antonia went through will help you. So Antonia figured out what she wanted to be. She wants to be an entrepreneur and work with, in the meantime, lots of entrepreneurs. So when we talked about how to get there, she said, well, I don't exactly know. I said, one of the key things that you can find is that you want to find great mentors and a great set of people around you to help you get there. One of the things that I've learned is the best people who helped me along my career were people who were already successful, people who were already successful doing what I wanted to do, who could teach me. Having access to some of the great mentors and great fellow founders when I was starting out my career as an entrepreneur in Seattle was critical. I still to this day thank people like Joe and Tony and Rand who helped me along that way. So, Antonia says, I would like to be an entrepreneur, and we need to meet those people who can wind up getting her there. So what did she do? She wrote a book that was designed to extract information from those people and share it. She got insights from dozens and dozens and nearly 100 successful startup founders, all of whom went to college. Not the people like Mark Zuckerberg or Evan Spiegel or Steve Jobs, but people who were actually in college to learn from them how they were able to use college to accelerate themselves there faster. Now, the byproduct is amazing. Number one, what did it do for her? Well, it actually got her a job. She was interviewing the founder of Masterclass, which is a successful startup company in San Francisco, raised nearly $100 million. She interviewed him for her book to learn about his insights. Well, from that same process, she was able to, in some ways, network her way through him into a job that wasn't advertising for undergrads, only to MBAs. That's part of the secret. She was able to build her network. The second thing, she was able to use this insight to effectively draw on the signals of others to communicate to someone else. Now, Tim Ferriss is someone who's very successful, has a very big brand associated with him. Getting a book from a college student may be something that's ho-hum, not a big of a deal. But remember, she had essentially gathered these insights from lots of people. She had folks like the founder of Honest Tea, Seth Goldman, as a blurb on the back of her book, the founder of the Founder magazine, folks who had already done it, and all these people that she'd interviewed. So when she gave Tim Ferriss a book, she was basically showing the power of her network to him. That's why he picked it up, that's why he read it, and that's why he was able to give her powerful feedback. So that's the important thing when thinking about the power of your book, is figuring out what are the key pieces, who are the people that you need to meet so that it can get you to your goal much, much, much faster. If you want to get into politics, how do you figure out how to gather your constituents and donors like that to help you? If you want to raise money for your startup venture, how do you wind up getting people who are investors and partners and those sorts of things? Who are the people? We oftentimes start with the what. I want to write a book on X, and I'm here to tell you, start with your why and then figure out your who. For Antonia, that was the key, figuring out her who and using the book as an excuse to network with all those people, gather their knowledge, and effectively give that signal back to other people to unlock opportunities in startup careers and jobs, and ultimately to meet her hero, Tim Ferriss. Amazing story of the power of starting with the why and taking it down to the power of the who.